Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kristen. Today we are down on the floor next to my beautifully confused TBR shelves. The truth is that I have too many unread books, and the other day I was sitting kind of like I am now on the floor next to my TBR shelves trying to figure out what I wanted to read next, and for some reason I was compelled to flip to one of the front pages in the book where it tells you the publication copyright, and I noticed that a lot of my books were published between like 2013 and 2017, but I had an idea. I literally went through every unread book on my shelf and looked at the year that they were published, and I decided that I wanted to start doing TBRs where I pick a year and I pull those books that were published in that year off of my shelf, and that is my monthly TBR. The thing about me is that I am a super huge mood reader, so I have a really hard time with super strict TBRs. What I decided is that if I'm doing it within all of the books that I own from that year, there is a very wide range of genres to pick from. It kind of gives me a little bit more freedom, but I still have some sort of structure to my TBR, which honestly might help me a little bit because 9 times out of 10, when I'm trying to figure out what book I want to read next, I end up sitting on the floor next to my TBR shelves for like half an hour trying to figure out what I want to read. So if I have a smaller pool to pick from, I think it might make me picking another book take just, you know, like a little bit less time than it usually would. So I have no intention of reading all of the books in this pile. This is kind of just a loose TBR so that I have some sort of structure going into April for the books that I want to read. I'm gonna kind of go through these by genre, I think is the best way to break them down. The first books that I'm going to start with are YA contemporary. At least I'm pretty sure that this first one is YA contemporary, and that is Saint Anything by Sarah Dessen. So I have read, I think, one of Sarah Dessen's books before. I wasn't a super huge fan of it, but I know that like so many people love her, and I just think that it wasn't one of her better books. So I am completely ready and willing to give her another try. And this book sounds like it's just a super good coming of age type story, learning more about yourself. Those are my favorite type of contemporaries, where it's really about the characters and there's not necessarily like any sort of crazy plot line. It's just people learning more about themselves throughout the course of the book. This book in particular follows a girl named Sydney who has always kind of, you know, avoided the spotlight, and she doesn't want to be the center of attention. But then a terrible accident lands her brother in jail, and it kind of, you know, pushes her family more into the public eye than she is used to being. What ends up happening is she kind of finds this new friend group with this family who owns the local pizza shop, which, first of all, adorable. We love pizza. We love a family-owned business. That is like, I'm already obsessed with that setting. I think that that's so great. It sounds like the 3 siblings that she ends up becoming friends with and interacting with all have very different personalities, and they all kind of bring something different to the table. As she starts to become friends with these new people, Sydney is finally able to focus on what really matters: friendship, love, and most importantly, herself. This just sounds like a nice palate cleanser, I think. As we get more into the rest of this TBR, you'll kind of see what I'm saying, because a lot of these books are actually like fantasy, which I didn't realize, but there's a lot of like higher action books, so I think that this one will be a nice one to throw in there kind of as a palate cleanser to like maybe reset after reading a fantasy or two. So I'm very excited about this one. So the second young adult contemporary is Not If I See You First by Eric Lindstorm, and honestly, I don't even know where I got this book. I don't know when I got this book. I really don't know a single thing about it or the author. I don't know anything about this. I do know, after taking a quick glance at the synopsis, that the main character of this book is blind, and as you can see on the cover, there's actually Braille on the cover, which I think is really interesting and like not something that I see a lot. I haven't read a lot of books or seen a lot of media with a blind main character, so that is something that I'm very intrigued by in this one. So this book follows main character Parker, who doesn't need 20/20 vision to see right through you. She has created a set of rules that are: don't treat her any differently just because she's blind, and never take advantage. There are no second chances. Just ask Scott Kilpatrick, the boy who broke her heart. So this book sounds like it has a lot going on. There is the plot line of Parker's ex-boyfriend Scott, who has now re-entered her life. She has recently lost her father. He passed away 3 months before this story starts, and she's also a member of the track team, and in the blurb it's really funny. She says her eyes might not work, but her legs do. This just sounds like a really good YA coming of age, and I'm very excited to have it on my list for my April TBR. So now I'm going to move on to a mystery thriller that I have from 2015. And this is one that I have heard 1.5 million things about. I don't know a single thing about the plot, which typically is how I like it when I'm reading thrillers and mysteries, because you don't want to know a lot. But that book is The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. And man oh man, I don't know how I have had this on my shelf for so long. Literally, like, everyone was raving about this when it first came out, and I still haven't read it because, you know, that's just the way it is sometimes. Oh wow, okay, yeah, so this sounds like, yeah, it just sounds like it's a hardcore thriller. But basically, this book follows main character Rachel, who takes the same train to and from work every day, and there's this couple that she constantly sees outside on their porch, and she has kind of come to think of them as like her friends. She calls them Jess and Jason, and they are just these people that she sees every single day on her commute. One day she sees something that must be pretty traumatic because she takes this information to the police. She doesn't really know anything about these people or their lives, but suddenly she is sucked in way over her head into this investigation. This is one that I have definitely been putting off for a very long time, and now that I have brought it back to light and kind of re-remembered that I own it, it is definitely one that I want to read. Man oh man. Wild. Next, let's talk about sci-fi. So I have 2 young adult sci-fi books in the mix for April's TBR, and the first one that I'm going to talk about I'm actually planning on buddy reading with Jessica over at Lady Lovestead's Reads, and I know she had some other people that she had been reading the first couple books of this series with, and I have somehow wormed my way in because I have already read the first 3, but I have not read the rest. And that book is Winter by Marissa Meyer. I read Cinder, Scarlet, and Cress, honestly, probably like in 2015. I think that when I read them, Winter hadn't come out yet. I do now own Winter, Fairest, and Stars Above, the like final 3 stories in this series. This one in particular follows a retelling of Snow White. The other stories in this series also all follow retellings of different fairy tale characters. I read all of those truly 1.5 million years ago, and I was so obsessed with them. I genuinely don't know why I stopped reading this series. They are truly such good books. They are so much fun. I love Marissa Meyer's writing. Her other book, Heartless, is one of my favorite books that I have ever read. A series of sci-fi fairy tale retellings is genuinely like peak. What more can you ask for? I'm still so upset that I stopped reading these, but I'm gonna finish this one this month. This is one that I know for sure that I'm going to read in the month of April, so I'm very, very excited about this one, and I'm so glad to finally be finishing this series. Maybe I'll end up reading Fairest and Stars Above this month as well too. I don't know. Who's to say what's gonna happen, but I will definitely be reading Winter in the month of April. The next sci-fi that I have is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Kristoff. And this is actually an advanced reader's copy that I got because in high school, one of my friends, her dad was a regional manager of Barnes & Noble, and we went to his store when Harry Potter and the Cursed Child was released, and in his office he just had like a stack of different ARCs. And I asked him if I could take some, and he said yes. So this is one of the ones that I ended up taking, but I haven't read it yet. I genuinely, really, truly, and honestly do not know a single thing about this series except for the fact it's not written in prose literally at all. Everything in it is kind of like logs from the spaceship and like different files and documents, and I didn't really have any solid intention of reading this book anytime soon until I picked it up and was just flipping through and saw the fact that it was written so differently from any book that I have ever read before, and immediately I was super intrigued. This is another one that is super high on my priority list for April. I own the whole series, and kind of what my plan is to take a whole week and just dedicate it to reading the Illuminae series. I'm thinking that it honestly probably won't take that long to read. I mean, they're very thick books, but because they are written in such an interesting way, and because a lot of it is like more shorthand than typical prose is, I feel like it's something that I will totally fly right through. Honestly, I'm not gonna look up any sort of synopsis for this book or this series because I really kind of want to go into it completely blind. I believe there's kind of this group of people who have to come together to more or less save the world and humanity, and I am also fairly certain that there is enemies to lovers in this book, and if you know me, you know that I love enemies to lovers. So I am very excited for this one. Sorry if that was an absolutely terrible synopsis, but I really do want to go into this one pretty much completely blind because it just seems like one of those stories that will be way more compelling if I know absolutely nothing about it when I start reading it. So the next book that I have is kind of the beginning of the fantasy pile, although I wouldn't necessarily classify it as fantasy, but it's not contemporary. I have a really hard time classifying books that take place in like a different kind of world but don't have any magic in them, because in my mind, in order to be a fantasy, there has to be some sort of magic. I don't really know. It's a YA book. Most people have read most of this series anyway, so I'm sure a lot of you will already know, but that is The Heir by Kiera, and this is the first in the spin-off duology of the Selection series, which for those of you who haven't read the Selection, it follows main character America as she is chosen to be one of the bachelorettes pretty much for the prince. It really is like a weird princess fairy tale version of The Bachelorette, where there are a bunch of women from within this kingdom fighting for the hand of the prince. And this actually claims itself to be book 4 in the Selection series. I thought that they were totally different, like not totally different series, but I didn't really think that they were considered all part of one series. These next 2 books follow America's daughter, and the back of this book just says, 20 years ago her mother won the crown. Now Princess Eadlyn is ready to find true love. So it sounds like where the original 3 books were a telling of The Bachelorette, this book will be more like a telling of The Bachelor, where now the princess is trying to find a prince to marry. Kind of similarly to the YA contemporaries in this group, this one feels like it could be a nice little palette cleanser. And I do actually, for this one and for a couple of the other fantasy and sci-fi books in this little TBR, I own more than one of the books in the series. So I will be allowing myself to read some of those other books if I feel like continuing on with the series. Even though they were not published in 2015, I'm going to give myself the room to keep reading these series because the more books I read on my TBR shelves, the better. So we'll see if I get to these ones in the month of April. So this first one is Madly by Amy Alward, and honestly, this is another one I have no clue where it came from or when I got it. So this one genuinely sounds like kind of a little bit like cheesy and dumb in a way. What it sounds like this is about is the princess of this nation, kingdom, what have you, has given herself a love potion that she intended to use on her crush so that they would fall in love, but she accidentally falls in love with her own reflection. First of all, hilarious. So there is a nationwide search called To Find the Antidote, which is where we meet main character Sam. She is on the hunt for this antidote. One of her biggest rivals is also the person that the princess intended on falling in love with while using the love potion. That's Madly, I guess. I don't know what else to say about this one, so we'll move on. So the next one is The Girl at Midnight by Melissa Gray. And first of all, I think this cover is so pretty. Purple's my favorite color, so that could be why, but regardless. Honestly, I know that I'm not going to do it justice explaining it, so I'm just going to read the blurb so that you guys get a good idea of what this book is about. Beneath the streets of New York City live the Avicii, an ancient race of people with feathers for hair and magic running through their veins. Old age enchantments keep them hidden from humans, all but one. Echo is a runaway pickpocket who survives by selling stolen treasures on the black market, and the Avicii are the only family she's ever known. Echo is clever and daring, and at times she can be brash, but above all else, she's fiercely loyal. So when a centuries-old war crests on the borders of her home, she decides it's time to act. Legend has it that there is a way to end the conflict once and for all. Find the Firebird, a mythical entity believed to possess power the likes of which the world has never seen. It will be no easy task, though if life as a thief has taught Echo anything, it's how to hunt down what she wants, and how to take it. But some jobs aren't as straightforward as they seem, and this one might just set the world on fire. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds fucking incredible. I don't know what it is. I think I'm just on a fantasy kick right now, and this sounds so good. This is one of those ones that, like, reading the synopsis, I have no idea how it has been on my shelf for so long without me reading it. Anyway, this is one that I'm hesitant to read because I'm not gonna let myself buy any books in the month of April, and I don't want to get attached to this series and then not be able to finish it, but maybe I will put this one at the end of my April books. If I read it at the end of the month, once May starts, I will maybe let myself buy the rest of the series. So, wow, I didn't think I would be so excited about this one. I'm a little bit overwhelmed. We have 2 books left, and these are books that are just so popular, and I know I should have read them by now, but I haven't. Let's start with this one because it is still YA, and the last one I believe is adult, so we'll stick all of the YAs together, and that is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I don't know a single thing about this book. I know that it's fantasy, and I know that the final book in the series came out at the beginning of this year. That's all I know about it. When the 4th book in the series came out, I really thought about starting it, and then, you know, for whatever reason, I just didn't end up picking it up. But I do remember reading the synopsis, and I was so captivated because the first 3 lines is just, Leia is a slave, Elias is a soldier, neither is free. That is what I'm here for. I want a fantasy novel where there is so much, like, upset over the kingdom and who's ruling and how everything is, like, handled by the monarchy or what have you. I just want it to be, like, in total disarray, and I want characters who feel like they're the underdog to rise up and overthrow the monarchy and save the world, and honestly, that's what this one sounds like it is going to be. This is another one where genuinely I don't want to know a lot about it going into it, so that is where I will leave the short little kind of synopsis. I'm genuinely, like, so excited about this one too. I own the 2nd one in this series already, and I know that now the covers are completely different. That just proves how long I've had these, and I feel like most of the world has already read it, so there's that. Alrighty, and the last book for this books that I own from 2015 that I haven't read yet, April TBR, is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I know that a lot of people really enjoy this book. I have heard Leonie at A Book Leo talk about it over and over and over again, and how it is one of the fantasy books that really got her into reading fantasy. So that is very intriguing to me. I also, this month in March, I read Our Savage Song, which is a V.E. Schwab book, and I really enjoyed that one, so I am kind of excited to have an opportunity to read more of her books. So upon reading the synopsis for this book, it sounds like it follows main character Kel, who is a magician. More specifically, she is a traveler, and in this fantastical universe, there are 3 different versions of London: Grey London, Red London, and White London, and there used to be a Black London. Don't know what happened to that. It's very ominous in the blurb on the back of the book. Genuinely, from reading just the blurb on the back of this book, I don't really have any kind of idea like what direction the story is going in. I just know that Kel is a traveler and that there are these 3 different versions of London, and it sounds like each of them have different kind of like magic control. So yeah, that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I am genuinely very excited about this one. Like I said, I just read one of her books for the first time in like 5 years this month in March, and going into April, I am very excited to have another one of her books as an option on this TBR list. So, oh my goodness, here, I don't even think I can get them all to fit in frame. Oh man, here is the stack of books for my April TBR. I'm very excited with the fact that it is such a wide range of genres and like different sort of storylines and tropes. I think that it will give me a lot of good options. I'm very hopeful that I will be able to get through a lot of these books. In a perfect world, I will get through at least half of them. Hopefully, I'll be able to get through more. We will see where April takes us. But yeah, I'm just so excited about this. Let me know what you guys think about this concept of how I'm picking my TBR. Let me know what you're reading in April. And if you liked this video and you want to see how my April wrap-up goes and how many of these books I was able to read, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. I am so happy to have all of you here with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again with another video soon. Bye!